the idea was to kind of talk about the journey of a student who's exploring career exploration, especially during the pandemic when a lot of the resources that they would have used previously were no longer accessible. And so we will start with Sapna talking a little bit more of the experiences of working with her students directly. And then hopefully Marcia will be able to join us and talk about some of the resources of a career office at an institution in the United States. And then Salil will share some of his experiences working with Vmock, working with technology, really providing solutions to some of the challenges we faced recently. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and pass it along to Sapna if you want to go ahead and do your portion here. We'll get to your slide in just a second.
Hi. So first, to give a bit of context, so I am not a very tech-savvy person. You know, I mean, yeah, Facebook. I did some WordPress, but I'm still. I mean, I have a profile on Instagram. I still don't use it. I have begun to do some amount of LinkedIn because I realize it's very useful. But I'm basically not very tech-savvy in nature, right? And the pandemic literally kind of forced us to step out of that zone and try and understand what we could do, because that was the only thing left to us. It did open tons of doors, because for those of you who don't know it, Mayo College is a very small, it's not very small. In terms of size, it's huge. In terms of legacy, it's even huger. It's 145 years, almost 150 years now. But in terms of student population, unlike a regular Indian school, we are just 500 something, 600 boys. It is a boys' school. So in that sense, it's a small community. And we are a very traditional boarding school, right? So 4 boundary walls, everything is monitored. Morning 5 o'clock you wake up until 10 when you sleep. Everything is being done as per schedule and stuff like that. So trying to understand what this whole new thing of virtual tools had opened up for us, because now the boys were home and actually had laptops and computers and mobile phones, which they never have otherwise. So that was the whole thing. So I just wanted to backtrack a bit and explain a few of the terms that we're using in the like within the nomenclature itself of the session. Career exploration. By career exploration, I'm sure most of you already know it. Do I need the mic? Can I just speak?
Can you just turn that mic on?
Okay. No. So career exploration actually first.
Tick.
And then the next step would be, where you would do. Should we remove that? That thing in the center. So then it would be career awareness, where you get, so first you understand yourself, then you try to figure out what are the various kinds of careers available, and God, we know how much that has changed, right? So from 30 careers that you could count on your fingers to now there are 30,000 and new ones coming in every day. So that's something. And then the third part is career trials, right? I mean, you would try. So you could do an internship, you could do a shadowing, or even just reading about a career and figuring out if this is the right one for me. And then, as all of us know, it's not a linear process. So there's a lot of going back and forth and all of that, right? So any tool which is helping us in this whole process of career exploration, which kind of has these 3 boxes of self-awareness, of career awareness, and of then career trials. I don't know if it's a term, I just coined it up. So that, all of that would come under career exploration tools, right? So if I can have the next slide, please. Should I use a clicker? Okay.
There we go.
Yeah, this box is not going away. So I'll speak, of course, because I'm not a global citizen like my fellow panelists. I very much belong to a very small city. So I wanted to just speak about my own context, because I really honestly don't know too much about other contexts. In my own context, I see 3 kinds of students that I'm working with. One, I do some volunteering work in a few government schools, so the first slide that you see are the government school girls that I'm working with, as part of another NGO. They're the ones who are doing all the work. I just come in once in a while, do something and go back. So that. And the second context is my own school. Okay. Can you see the?
Yes, we'll get the screen up. Sorry about that.
The second context is my own school. As I mentioned, it is a boarding school, right? So, while we are very, very tech enabled, the whole campus has everything, but we do not allow children to have private screens. So there are no laptops, there are no mobile phones, which is great for their personality, absolutely awesome, because they really actually interact with each other in person. They do everything, they're on the fields the whole day, all of that. But they don't have access to technology in the same way as a regular child has, a regular child with access. And the third kind of children I deal with are day school children. So my own children go to a day school, and I see how they were during, so they were like, they have a laptop at their beck and call the whole day, practically, except for the 5 hours they're at school. They're literally eating with it. They sleep with it. The laptop is like next to their heads when they're sleeping, their pillows. And they wake up, and the first thing they do is they go back on the laptop, right? So I just wanted to kind of talk about, this is also a kind of disparity. So I know most of us as school counselors make a profile, and most of university admission officers look at profiles, school profiles, right? Traditionally, what we're looking at a school profile, we're looking for stuff like, what curriculums you're offering, what's the economic, social status of the children who are coming there, and stuff like that, right? I, for one, have started including in my profile that my students do not have access to the internet, okay? Because I think that is also a big divider, okay? It creates its own kind of disparity. It's a unique kind of disparity. It's not that they're disadvantaged socially or financially or any of those, but it is a disparity because the kind of tools that some of the children who have a lot of access to the internet have, they don't have that same access, right? So that is something we wanted to speak about. And one more thing is that it's not all bad. Like the first slide, the government school kids that we're working with, they suddenly have a lot of access than they used to have, right? So they are all over small villages around Ajmer, so not even in the city of Ajmer, which itself is a small town. They're like all over. And I was able to connect with them on the net. Now they're getting people from all over India, speaking with them, talking to them, all of that. So I guess, yes, it does kind of, it is a leveler in a way, but it does add another kind of its own disparity also. So just to keep that context in mind. And then the next one, please. I had the thing.
Next slide, yeah, here. Next slide?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so now all of you are familiar with Mentimeter? Can we please request you to just sign in on this code, and if somebody can present that. Just open the Mentimeter and put the presentation. Right, so how many of you have been able to log on? It was 830.
Oh, sorry.
Where's the code? Yep. 83703971. And then now, yes. We have to go to the Mentimeter. No, it won't come in. आपने already खुला हुआ है वो tab. इस tab को बंद कीजिए. और उस वाले tab में Mentimeter वाले tab में जाइए, please.
Okay, so the Mentimeter is working? Okay. Yes.
830. What was that? Can somebody who has it just give it, please? Because we have to present it. And let me just try.
Yes, the PowerPoint, please, the PPT. Yes, that, right there, yeah.
Okay, so let's just forget about that. So we just forget it, it's not working. Okay, so let's go around, put up our hands and say, what are your favorite tools? Some of your favorite tools that you're already using. Any of your favorite tools that you're already using for career guidance, for career exploration, self-exploration, any of that? Yeah, 16 personality, beautiful test, absolutely free of cost on the internet. Anything else?
Okay.
On that slide. Which one did you say, ma'am? VIA strength test. Okay, I've not used that one, but I'm sure it's great. Anybody else? Okay, Forage. That's great. That's great. Forage for internships, online internships. Anybody else? Any more internship tools? Right. Yeah, and a lot of course material also. You can actually do programs there. Yeah, it's swam.com. That's absolutely correct. Yes. What else? So if you click on this link, and we'll share the link with you. I was hoping to get your email addresses via that. But if you just put in on your forms, we will send it to you. So there are about, I think, 200 virtual tools that you can use in that document. And we will make sure that we mail it to you. Can we just pass a paper and...
Yeah, you will have a copy of these slides in your app, and it'll have access to that.
Yeah, we will send that document to you. So for this, I'll just hand over.
Yes, okay. Okay, so at this point, we are going to welcome our colleague Marcy Newman from, if we can go ahead and get the Zoom to work, please. So she can discuss working at a career center in the United States and some of the virtual tools there. So if you give us just 1 second here. Marcy, can you, okay, can we go ahead and unmute Marcy, please? Okay. Okay, can you put her on screen, please? And okay. Marcy, can you hear us? Okay.
Why can't we see her?
Yes.
Okay, there we are. Okay, fantastic. Can we get the spotlights? Marcy, please. Okay, there we are. Okay. Where's Marcy, please. Okay, so okay, so if we can go ahead and go to the next slide on the PowerPoint, please. Okay. Okay. So again, our apologies with the technical issues. Hopefully, my colleague Marcy will be able to join us here shortly. Her slides are really discussing the role of a career and professional development center, which you may or may not be familiar with at a college or university in the United States. So we wanted to start off with that. First of all, again, as a student, when that student enrolls at a higher education institution, specifically in the United States, but in other parts of the world as well, there are dedicated professionals whose role is to work really closely with students and to provide them with the type of guidance and resources so that they can explore possible career paths. And so at LMU, our office is called Career and Professional Development. Again, the name varies quite a bit from around the United States and around the world. But again, these are dedicated professionals who help students with tools like interviewing skills, for example, and we'll hear more about some of the resources that Vmock offers in that area here shortly. Things like resume writing for the US context, things like connecting with companies via networking events, via virtual events. So really providing a resource so that students can really explore opportunities once they complete their degrees at our institution, right? And so specifically, there are a lot of people who are excited to work with our students, and this will be the case anywhere in the US at these career centers, where students, again, have the opportunity to really explore many, many different possibilities here. Those include, again, opportunities to connect directly with career coaches who may even be focused on specific fields of study, to opportunities to connect with employers from around the area or around the country, to opportunities to even take trips to various parts of the country and meet directly with employers and learn more about the professional atmosphere in those areas. So, again, our apologies that Marcy can't join us at the moment. Hopefully she'll be here with us in just a second. But how this evolved, how the office evolved during the pandemic, was really focusing quite a bit on accessibility, right? So providing opportunities for students to connect virtually via Zoom, as we've all discovered, is such a wonderful tool that normally works so well. So via Zoom, via other opportunities like that, to really ensure that students can connect directly with our employers and with our career staff. Again, we have a really phenomenal partnership. We'll hear a little more about some of the tools that Salil has been able to create as well. So looking at those technology partners has been a really important consideration as well. LMU offers additionally opportunities to connect directly with alumni from the institution. So it's students who have previously graduated and who, again, are excited to work with our current students as well. So again, a lot of focus on providing those tools and resources virtually is certainly something that we found to be incredibly successful. And so again, just to reinforce that we do have dedicated staff who are very much excited to work with our students and help them explore all the different possibilities that might be available to them once they enter the university, with the goal of them completing their degree and moving on to a career that they really feel excited about once they leave the campus. Okay? So again, our apologies for the myriad technical difficulties, and again, hopefully my colleague Marcy will be able to join us here shortly, but with that, we'll go ahead and pass it along to Salil and talk a little more about some of his resources. If we can move the slide, please. Thank you.
Oh, Marcy's here.
Is she able to talk? I'm not sure she's able to talk yet. Is she? Yeah.
She's on mute.
We'll get there. We'll get there eventually. But if you want to go ahead and go with your part. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Hi, guys. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'll just focus not so much on the slides, but actually just walk you through some of the stuff that we have done for hundreds of universities around the globe, and give you some perspectives on how students actually have leveraged what we have done and otherwise also in terms of accelerating their career journeys. Most of the students going, how many of folks here are from outside India? Non-India. Please raise your hands. Where are you from, ma'am?
West Africa.
Excellent. Excellent. West Africa. Switzerland. Philippines. And so Nepal. Kenya. Anybody else? So we got 5+1 type of representation here, which is fantastic. So I'll give you some perspective from my journey, and I think you would actually relate very well with Indian student journey. I was born in a small city in India, and I grew up in a town called Lucknow. You all probably know this. And then eventually ended up, I studied in a high school called City Montessori. And then very middle-class family, dad doctor, mom teacher, and then eventually decided that I needed to do something. Otherwise, I'm just going to be stuck. So I ended up going to IIT. And I went to IIT Kanpur and graduated from IIT Kanpur, but then my graduation journey was very different. During my 4 years at IIT, I actually realized that I don't want to be just the bookworm. I wanted to really do tons of things that IIT offered. I had never played tennis. I had never really participated in events which were present at IIT, one of which being fashion show. So a lot of things were available to me. And then I got so mesmerized with all of that that I said, okay, I'm going to do that. What ended up happening as a consequence of that was that I actually was slowly developing my personality. My grades were not really supporting me, but my personality was definitely supporting me. You've probably heard of those stories from coming out of IIT. And then the pressure of home actually was there that you have to do something. You had to go to like when you go to IIT during my time, you had to go to the US. It's like, it was a necessary thing that everybody did. SCOL was like everybody's hostel. You had like those SCOLs means scholarships. They were posted there. And I knew that with my grades, nobody is going to give me a scholarship. Forget about admissions. I'm not even going to get the admission. So I met a professor. I'll put all this story into a context, by the way. So stay with me. It'll be interesting also over time. And once it gets boring, somebody raise hand and I'll just move on to slides. So my brother actually introduced me to a professor who was coming to Lucknow. He was from Harvard. And I remember his name, Professor Glenn Jenkins, I think. And I met him. He looked at my transcript. I was very open. I had realized that if you have to take somebody's advice, you have to tell them everything. So I just gave them my transcript. He looked at how many different beautiful grades I had, and he said that, son, you look fine, and I don't know what's happening with you, but with these grades, you're not going to be accepted anywhere. So I said, oh my God, what do I need to do? He said, you look pretty young. Why don't you go and go to a top school in the US and first do a master's and prove that you actually are the kind of student that you're saying that you are. So I said, okay, that makes sense. That totally makes sense. And I started working through my network because that was very important for me to figure out where do I go. Luckily, because of my personality, I got recruited by one of the good companies coming to campus called Schlumberger. So I went to the oil field and I started doing some oil field work, not for Schlumberger initially, but for another company called McDermott. And then eventually ended up being at Texas A&M for my master's in engineering, and then petroleum engineering. And then basically I realized this is my last chance. If I screw up here, I'm done. So I needed to focus on grades. So I actually graduated. I didn't
Hello?
Hey, Marcy's here. Marcy, can I continue while I'm on my story?
Of course. Yes.
Okay.
They're just testing my audio. I'm sorry, so they'll continue.
Okay. And now you'll hear my story, uncut truth. So I went to Texas A&M. I got my master's. I did graduate with a very recent GPA. I mean, once you focus, see what India teaches you, which I'm also asking my daughters to learn. What India teaches you is like, once you decide you have to do it and you don't have any options, I think you just do, you excel. There is no question in my mind, absolutely no question in my mind that, because the kind of, you see the presentation, how long did it take us to really get Marcy over here? We work through efforts to really do very simple things. We put a lot of efforts into very simple things. And I'll tell you why, when I was in the US, I actually started taking so many things for granted. Are you guys finding it interesting? I can switch. Okay. So basically then I went to Texas A&M and I still couldn't stop myself, so I ended up actually standing for elections at Texas A&M, became president of Petroleum Engineering Graduate Student Organization. So that gave my ego boost and all the things that I needed to get besides studies. Well, after graduating from there, I joined, everybody was like, those who go to the US, they never want to leave the US, especially my times. And I'll tell you, my times are different times. I may look like whatever I look, but I'm a class of 1992 graduate. I graduated IIT Kanpur in class of 1992. So just to put in perspective, like where I'm coming from. So then basically what I did was, I said, I'm not going to be focused on just staying in the US. The world is the play. It was already in my mind, the world is the play for me. So then Schlumberger actually came back. They had a very good division called Integrated Project Management. I actually just joined that, went to Paris and basically Montrouge, and basically started working all over the world. In between, I also got what I really wanted to do. I got admission into University of Chicago and did my MBA. And when University of Chicago gave me admission, I asked them to defer my admission for 1 year so that I could save some money. I didn't have the green card. My mom and dad didn't have any money. So I needed to save money in order to really pay for my education. Otherwise, nobody would pay. So I'm now walking you through the journey of a student. Please, mind it. All of these things your students are also facing. So I don't know who's going to be the co-signer for me, because you need a co-signer in order to get that. Now there are plenty of companies that actually might be able to give you some guidance, some help. But in my case, there was no one. So I worked for 1 year. I was 160, 170 days non-stop in Saudi Arabia. Non-stop in Saudi Arabia. And not in Saudi Arabia, in the waters in Saudi Arabia. In the waters in Saudi Arabia. I was laying pipelines. I was doing all kinds of things. But I decided that, okay, that's easy. That's easy. And a room which is probably 6 by 6 is where I had my bunk beds, which is where I used to be as a field engineer. As a field engineer. So that's the journey which I charted, and I was very happy because I was actually getting to my goals. So that's one other thing. That career exploration that Sapna is talking about, it's not a short-term journey. It's a long-term journey. And that's what my slides are going to tell you. Each one of my slides is going to tell you exactly the same thing. That you take it as a short-term journey, highly selective schools are going to just identify like this that you have done the lip service. You put a skill on your profile, on your resume, that you've got Python, you've got this leadership skill, you've got this communication skills. That's bogus. Any pair of seasoned eyes in 5 seconds, forget the AI and machine learning that I'm going to talk about, but any pair of seasoned eyes, they will actually just comb through your true skills versus your stated skills versus they are not even a skills. You just have an acquired knowledge. You did some courses on Coursera. Ain't going to cut it. Continuing to my journey, I'm going to mix it like this, and then I'll just be very mindful of the time. So basically then I graduated from University of Chicago. Again, when I went to University of Chicago, and again, now I'm going to give you some controversial thing, but it's about my life. So again, when I went to University of Chicago, I saw everyone. It's a rat race. Everything is a rat race. And you've got to be aware of what is the rat race, what is the race, which race you want to put yourself on, or which race you don't want to put yourself on. Everyone was preparing for, besides, like I'm already 28 when I actually went to University of Chicago. Now everyone is relearning how to crack cases, management consulting cases. And I said, I'm 28-year-old. I actually was leading like 200, 300 people in Middle East, Saudi Arabia, drilled wells, laid pipelines, escaped nearly dying 6 times. I am not going to learn all this stuff. I am who I am. I have also proved that I'm a pretty decent student. I went to IIT, I screwed up my grades, but then I came to Texas A&M, I aced everything, and graduated from Chicago, Dean's Honor, all that stuff is there. So why am I going to relearn myself into like how the world wants to see? So I was very against, like, don't force your frameworks on me. 3C, 4P, all of that stuff is cool, but I don't want to take it. So I actually built my journey like that. Even with my own kind of like frameworks on the fly and everything else, I actually got into consulting, but I didn't like it. Then I went to another company. I realized that in order for you to be successful as an Indian who's a Hindi medium graduate from Lucknow, only thing I needed to know was like how to talk. I just needed to learn how to communicate, and I didn't know how to communicate. And somebody told me that if you need to communicate, you actually just get into a career which is not so cool early on in your journey, and that was sales. So I left my AT Kearney that I used to work for and all of that stuff. I actually went to a sales job at Corporate Executive Board. I really struggled because they make you do cold calls, and in cold calls you have to just do first 20 meetings. Only after that you are actually able to do and visit and really do deal closing. I really struggled. I thought they were going to fire me, and then eventually I became their top sales guy at Corporate Executive Board. And that's when basically my journey actually started. I started getting the confidence because I knew that I can solve the problem, but now I can communicate the problems like I'm doing with you guys right now. In my mind, in the back end, there is a problem solving going on. I am actually talking to you and I'm learning as to what you guys are communicating through your nonverbal and verbal communications right now. So with that, again, like it was the journey where I met my wife. She was also at Corporate Executive Board. She also wanted to go to business school. We said, we picked up a city. She picked up Chicago. She ended up going to Kellogg. And then in the US, as an international student who has gone through F1 visa, OPT, CPT, H1s and H1 renewals and another H1 renewals and deadlines and you're about to be kicked out, I got my green card. And I said, holy cow, what a moment. What a moment, I don't have to work for anyone. That day when I got my green card, I spoke to my boss. He already was very impressed with me and he said, what do you want? I said, give me some time. I just want to get some time and then tada bye-bye. So I was working for Siemens at that time. I was their head of emerging markets. Basically got my green card, gave up on all of that, and then decided that, Kiran, my wife, actually, she said, you have made my life hell, go do something now. So then we had some money in the bank. We actually said, we're going to go and start something. I didn't know what to do, but one thing I really enjoyed, and she also really enjoyed, was if I found someone who is underemployed or who has a potential, I am so drawn to that person. And I would just sit down with that person, giving constant coaching till the time they hate me, that what do you need to do in order to get to the next thing? So leveraging that thing that we had, we started this company called Vmock. And we said, we're going to democratize career readiness, career acceleration, career preparation by everyone. Big mission, big mission. If you use the word everyone, then it is a very big mission. And then you can't solve people to people. You guys all deal with career counseling. It's so difficult when you have to deal with like hundreds and thousands of students, but I'm talking about millions. How do you do that? So fortunately for me, Kiran actually came from computer science background. So we said we're going to build an AI platform. And what's the area that we're going to help? The area where once you get serious that you are looking for a job or an internship, what do? You've got to have a good resume. You've got to have a good LinkedIn profile. You've got to have a good story, which people call elevator pitch. You must have done certain career exploration that Sapna is talking about. You must identify where the skills and where the gaps in your skills. You must have a career plan to really bridge those skills. You must have a plan to really keep working on it and someone to give you feedback and be adaptive 24/7, anytime, anywhere, online. We put all of those things together and we said, okay, let's do it. Today we have like close to 125, 130 people that are working in my company. I have close to 60, 70 folks from IIT. And we built a fantastic platform. We work with Loyola Marymount, we work with Carnegie Mellon, we work with USC, we work with MIT, NUS, NTU, University of Sydney, name it, like everywhere. And the reason I'm here for the first time, because I really wanted to get in touch with you guys, because I think the moment has come where I really want to put my mission back into thing, because we built the platform. We built the most awesome platform, 8 patents granted, and we can actually help anyone who actually is looking to really accelerate their career journey. What I'm trying to show you here is, coming to slides, I basically divided schools in highly selective, moderately selective, and slightly selective. Do you guys follow what I'm saying? So highly selective college could be like Stanford. And then you get the flow here. There is literally very marginal difference when you look at what are they looking for. Very marginal difference. They're looking for the same thing in your students. And there are some admissions directors here, they will actually vouch for it. And if I'm wrong, they'll correct me, and I'm very happy if they actually say, Salil, shut up, you're not making sense. They're all looking for same things. Question is, when did you get serious about it? And the question is, did you do it seriously? Did you actually build certain skills that is going to be helpful to you when you graduate from my school? At the end of it, the director of admissions, director of career services, director of academics, or whatever the counterparts, like vice president, president, whatever the name, the titles, it doesn't matter. But the heads of those verticals are all reporting to the top on the institution, and everybody has a dashboard. You can take me in, but if I don't graduate with a job, or if I don't get an internship, it's not a success for my school. You take me in, I graduate with an internship, but I am not the alumnus that is going to make my institution proud and actually going to be giving back to my institution. you haven't done a good job. So all things are very connected. They're all part of the evaluation cycle. That is what every student, high school student, is going to go through. So as a career counselor, this is just a prototypical example of finance. We can actually go to the next slide, Dan, which is on technology. And you're going to see that same thing which you are seeing in finance, that internship experience. You see how much of an impetus has been given on internship here from a highly selected school versus moderately to low selective school. Internship. Why internships are so important? Because internships are a real way to develop skills. Real way. And we have this thing that internship, when the students have to do internship, they are so young, so you just go do something somewhere and we'll write on a piece of paper. I can assure you it gets identified. I can write it on a piece of paper and tell you, even my algorithms can identify whether you've done it or this is like just bogus. Because those same skills somewhere else are going to show up on your paper. We're going to triangulate, we're going to connect. AI is smart enough to do that. And human eyes, like fantastic to do that. Experience, you can't just beat that. Because our sensory objects, which is actually constantly absorbing data for 30, 40 years, that's like the supercomputer right there. And that supercomputer you can't beat. So same thing with technology. If you said that you have certain skills, call it Python or SQL, how did you develop that skill? Where did you develop that skill? How much time did you put in to really develop that skill? Okay, if you did Python, you must have done all of these other things too. Let me check those. Okay, two of these critical skills are missing. Your thing is already clear now that you actually didn't do it. And good selective institutions, they actually don't select you, they reject you. They actually have a very clear mechanism to really make sure that you go into this pile. Now you have to do something really good in order again to move into other pile, which is like great SAT score, whatever it is, however they select. But my focus is the skills. I think skills is the new currency. I think you are a walking, talking knowledge graph, and you should be constantly thinking about yourself. So in my opinion, as an advice, the next slide if you go to, Dan.
Next slide, please.
And the next slide. This is a very cool slide if you think of it. And we basically built these slides for you guys. I wanted to come here and I wanted to make sure that I tell you guys that I've got it. I understand what it is, what's going on. So same thing which the school is doing, that if you are actually going into highly selective institution, they're asking you to develop and build the skills. If you develop and build the skills, you're going to get a good job right away. Versus if you actually have not built the skill, you've done the lip service, a hogwash, then basically there is no escaping. You're going to actually take more time. You're going to take more time really getting to those dream jobs and dream companies. You must have heard of so many people who actually take like first attempt, second attempt, third attempt, right? I mean, this is very popular in India. That's what happens in the jobs as well. So you want to get into a top career. You want to get into a top institution. You want to get into, it's a perpetuating cycle. And when Sapna is talking about like balancing the field, we have to, as career counselor, insert very early on with the kid and tell them that if you're going to get off this track, in order to get back to this track, you will have to put those additional extra efforts. There is no escaping that is going to happen. I'm going to be available to answer any questions you guys have. Thanks.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. So, really appreciate your perspective. So I believe the moment of truth has arrived, and I believe Marcy can actually say hello. And again, very, very excited. I know the excitement's been building for you to actually hear from her, so now she can actually do so. Go ahead, Marcy.
Yes. Good morning, everyone. I'm so sorry there's been such technical difficulties, but I'm here in Los Angeles, and I wish I could be with you all in person. We are gearing up for our students to return to our campus on Monday, so as you can imagine, pretty busy on our campus, but really very honored to be here virtually with all of you. Again, my name is Marcy Newman. I'm serving as the Interim Associate Vice Provost for Career and Professional Development Dan is a wonderful colleague of mine, and I work very closely with his team as well as other folks in our division to recruit, retain, orient, onboard a ton of our students, and similar to Salil's point, really coach them and help mentor and develop them from first year to graduation. We also see students once they leave us, they can come back as alumni to utilize our services, our programming, because as we all know, career discernment is lifelong. And we often share that with our students that, they should see us early and often. And also remember that, again, discernment, reflection, introspection, internships, volunteering, job shadowing, getting that experience and exposure as frequently as you can really help provide clarity around next steps, whether that be employment, graduate school, service. We have a lot of students that go on to work for or to do service within companies like Teach for America or City Year, AmeriCorps. We have very service-oriented students at Loyola Marymount University. So happy to answer any questions. Happy to share my email for conversations beyond this time together. But really just thrilled to be with you all tonight in Los Angeles and this morning over in India. But thank you for your time and your interest in the work that we're doing, and happy to be, continued resource if you have questions about my office or what we do exactly within a career center.
Thank you so much, Marcy. Really appreciate that. We have roughly 10 minutes or so left in the session. I'd love to hear from some of you if you have any questions for Sapna, for Salil, for Marcy, more about these kind of opportunities to explore career outcomes, career exploration using virtual tools. Any questions from any of you? Yes, please.
Hello, I'm Paula from West Africa. I would like to know whether we are going to get all those tools so that we know how to use it. And also you talk about internship. So how, our student can be exposed to those internships? How can they get access to it?
Do we still have we might have lost Marcy. I was really excited because that would have been oh, okay, great. Can you speak a little bit to the idea of an internship, how you look for internships, Marcy?
Absolutely. So within our office, we have a platform called Handshake. I can put this in the chat and I'm happy to share this at a later point. Handshake is a platform that our campus uses for students to find internships and off-campus employment. It's a platform that a lot of different universities, especially in the United States, use for students to create a profile, engage with employers, and look for opportunities that exist off campus. So that is typically the main way students at LMU look for internships. I also often encourage students to go to the company website. Say, for instance, they want to work at like the Walt Disney Company, which is very well received and very popular within our campus community. They can go specifically to the website of the company and look at the careers tab to see different opportunities that exist within those different companies. So those are just two ways off the bat to find those opportunities. The last thing I'll say too is, speaking with professors who have students that they're still in touch with, that have industry contacts. I always encourage students to make relationships with their professors who may have someone that they know who's working at a company or organization that interests them. So always encourage folks to use their networks, whether that is their alumni network, their professors, family, friends, church, whatever organization or community they're a part of, to let people know what they're looking for and how they might be able to assist or introduce them to these kind of opportunities.
Thank you so much, Marcy. And just to clarify a little further, again, this is primarily U.S.-specific focus at the moment, but just to emphasize that specifically in the U.S., there are, and this would be varied from country to country, of course, but there's an option called curricular practical training, which is internship focused. As part of the student visa process, students are given the ability to get hands-on work experience. Again, that'll vary from country to country, but that's one resource that, again, is available to any student who's studying in the U.S. Yes.
Thank you. in the Indian context, internships for high schoolers are pretty difficult to come by. So I'm sure the other counselors would share my view. Typically in school, what we do is look out for some websites like Internshala, which also wants 18-year plus. Otherwise, we check out with parents who are well placed, having their own businesses or working in organizations. But if you look at banks or multinational companies, it will be very rare to hire a less than 18-year-old.
Yeah, so I think I can take that one because that's a very real problem in the Indian context, especially. So actually, I also tell my students that I think we need to tone down our expectations. I think the word internship itself, in a way, for a high schooler, it's a big thing, right? I mean, internship sounds really important and strong. You're usually shadowing, right? So that's the usual. I mean, I call yourself an observer, call yourself a shadower, stuff like that. For most, what we started to do is we started to have a LinkedIn session for grade 9th or 10th, where we teach them. And this is a big jump because in my school, LinkedIn was a banned site. A student could not go on to LinkedIn. So now from that, within a year, now they're taught to work on LinkedIn. That you have to have a LinkedIn profile. That's your first thing as a grade 10er that you do. And from there, you can really do a lot. So it's very difficult to get an internship right away. But if you're following the right people, if the people can see that you're putting in content like that, even books that you're reading, stuff like that, then when you reach out to them via connection, it does help. So that's one process. There are some virtual internship websites now available, and I found that those are also pretty useful. So these are like short virtual internships that you can do, 2 hours, 3 hours, sometimes 3 days, sometimes a week. And they're not really, I don't think they should be called internship. I think that's more of a marketing gimmick. But they are good for observation. They're good to interact with somebody in the field already, and I won't name names right now, but the document has a list of a lot of these people who are providing these kind of observations, and you will all get that document. So that's one way. If any, of course, the alumni, parent, that connection.
Oh, sorry, you can just let her add, please. Yes. Yes, please.
So definitely I would support that. We also run this campus to corporate where we make our parents as a stakeholder to offer the internships because they are CEO, HRs and hold a high position in the company and they can give better position as well as teach them 2 skills. That is most important. If you teach them at the right stage, I think they can pursue it in a better way. So one is art of networking because if they network well, they can ask their alumni right questions. And so apart from networking, it's ask right questions. So we have this paper called as, how did I become what I am? So there are 5 questions in that. So when you say shadowing, you actually go to the company one day, ask these 5 questions to a particular person, see how they work, actually see observation and write them, and that's what they get through. I think these 2 skills are so important at that age. So once they grow up or when they go into the university, even when these skills are at the right place, I think all the resource they'll be able to find them.
I'm so glad you brought that up because so the first activity, grade 9, as they come into the career guidance program is a career visit, exactly what you're talking about, where they go to 10 or 12 different work areas and they go with this questionnaire and then they come back and they present to everybody else. It's amazing. That's a really beautiful thing to do, yes.
Yes, ma'am. Here, as we have seen in the same line thought, when this pandemic hit a lot, at the time it was students were at home, but I will say that larger opportunities were given to the students and virtual internships were available. And that has been given to +1, +2 students, and that they have increased to 9th standard and 10th standard, 10th grader also. With Mindler, Next Genius, IBM Skill Build programs, it's absolutely running well, and students have found that that's very pretty useful for their career aspects as well.
True. So I was listening to one of the students online once, not my student, somebody else, and he'd got an internship with a doctor in an actual hospital set up in Bombay. And he said, I wrote to 100 people. I wrote to 100 doctors, and one got back to me. But through that, he got a 2-month internship, actual internship with a doctor. So it works.
Hi, I'm Samya from Aston University. So I actually have a question for really the 3 of you. So coming from a university and honestly, I'm from Lucknow as well, so I completely understand the where students looking at studying abroad and really aiming for the higher ranked universities, so to say, face a challenge, especially when it comes to internships, development programs, and so on and so forth. Today, working with a university, I do understand how important it is to look at the employability stats of a university rather than the rankings. And I believe a lot of you would accept and agree with me that even today, in a lot of countries and a lot of regions, students still see the rankings of the universities rather than the employability stats. Now, my question here is that as a university, I am sure a lot of universities actually track it by nationality, but a lot of universities still don't. How do we go around tracking employability by nationality in a certain country? Since we are talking about tools, I think it is something that we should be talking about. So for example, a student going to the UK or to the US from India, what is the probability of him getting a job? What are the employability stats in that area in a certain sector?
Yeah, great question. If Dan, shall I answer?
Oh, please, please.
At least try. You're 100% right. We got to understand, number one thing, that there is a disruption going on in the education. Clear disruption going on in the education, and I think it's sooner or later it's going to come and hit high schools too. Because the days of sage on the stage and just we worshipping them is over. It's absolutely over. So what's happening today, that because of the internet and the availability of the content, teacher who was earlier synonymous to content and the lecture notes is no more the case. I see every day my two daughters actually come back home, and if the teacher actually made something interesting, then that teacher is cool. Otherwise, they may have the best notes, they just say, I'll copy it. Copy the notes. So that's what is already happening. Now, going back to your question, ranking versus employability, they're not two separate things. Every ranking that I'm aware of, employability is a very important input into it. So they are totally related. Plus, for a keen student, it's a fair market. It's an open market. So which means every student will have to do some diligence and research. Companies can absolutely, like we do, we actually say that if you're a UK citizen in the United States, what kind of opportunities are open to you? Because a lot of companies in the United States are looking for UK candidates, UK graduate candidate from MIT Sloan, and they are trying to place them into some other EU place where they have method to madness that has figured out. So I think it's a pretty, that is the bigger piece, by the way. That is the bigger piece. It's education in some ways is a step towards really getting to where you want to get to. And once you get to it, that's when you realize, holy cow, how do I go and deal with these issues, which are visa issues and other issues that you have. So there is no shortcut to any of these things. There is a lot of planning, and people who have been successful, I can assure you, I am surrounded by thousands of them. People who are successful, they've all done the hard work. They've all done the hard work. And this is part of that.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.